Hey, they can't hear us. I had the microphones off.
See, the microphones are off. It's okay.
Everybody, Jordan Page.
He says he's doing well, so we super duper appreciate you coming on. I mean, really, this is amazing. We're very laid back. I think I probably forgot to tell you that.
For having me.
We're chill. We're just like hanging out. This is what we do. So I wanted to ask if I could start out with, I'd like to find out how people kind of got to where they are, as far as being, libertarian. Was there a political background in your family? Did you grow up thinking one way and it changed along the way, or did it not anything happen until later in your life?
That's a great question. Well, I grew up in a very democratic leaning household. Certainly no love for Republicans there. I didn't have a lot of political upbringing in any kind of way. It wasn't something that was in our house. I actually feel like I was sort of called out of my slumber by the Lord back in 2006.
Wow.
I had a dream on December the 1st of '06, kind of an end of the world kind of dream. Mm-hmm. And I woke up from that dream around 3:00 in the morning and went into my office and sat down at my computer and just started typing, eyes droopy. And a few minutes later, I looked at what I had written, and it was beyond my experience. Mm-hmm. That's all I can really say to quantify it. It was beyond my understanding. It was beyond my pay grade. It was beyond my experience. And I recognized that it had a lot of political tones to it. And so I called a buddy of mine in Seattle I used to live in Seattle. I was on the East Coast in Maryland at this time. So I called him. He was 3 hours behind. So it was about midnight. And I had the wrong number. I had his old number, his old house, and it was his mom answered. She was up late. She says, well, read it to me. So I read it to her. And she says, well, it's wonderful, but it makes me sad that someone your age, I was about 26 at the time, someone your age feels this way about their country. She's like, just remember something. She says, the pendulum swings left and right. Tired of it being one way or the other way.
Yeah.
And I heard a voice in my mind say, and I thanked her for her time, and we hung up, and I picked up my guitar and a chord and just sang, the pendulum swings from the left to the right. And I wrote this chorus that I just inserted in between the stanzas, and boom, instant song. And I was scared of the song. I thought they were going to hate me. Mm-hmm. And I eventually played it live 3 weeks concert that I did at the Rams Head Tavern Theater in Annapolis, Maryland. It's about a 350 seat theater. And I was sure they were going to hate it, but I got the courage to play it. And I got a standing ovation from the entire room. It was so loud, it was like deafening. Oh. And God spoke to me and said, do you see? They understand what this song is about. Now it's time for you to go find out what this song is about.
Wow.
And so I said, okay. And I dove headfirst into the darkness of the internet information, downward spiral, and spent the next 2 years doing nothing but research. I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of documentaries. I, discovered people like Paul and G. Edward Griffin and Judge Napolitano and Tom Woods, Bob Murphy, Mises. I mean, these thinkers that have been talking about this stuff, Bastiat, there's so many I could name. But anyway, just the Austrian economics school of thought, and and I learned about war. I learned what it's all about, how it starts, where it comes from, why these things are going on, the international banking cartels, and how they can take side of every conflict so they always win, and have enslaved us, from 1913 on, from the Federal Reserve Act, and I just started writing songs about this. And it caught on, and eventually I met Ron Paul at a big event in 2008 that I did, the Revolution March in D.C., and that was the first event I ever did with him. And I became kind of a staple on his events while he was, doing the 2011-12 election cycle, and in between as well. I did a lot of events with him in between too, but I ended up doing this. I got several dozen major events with him, and built a national following, and such as it is. And I'm still here, still doing it in the age of Trump, and it's never been more relevant. I mean, I think I consider myself philosophically more of an anarchist, voluntarist. Yeah. I'm also a very pragmatic person, and I'm a realist too. And I'm just trying to create help to contribute to create a culture that is embracing of liberty and turns away slavery. And I haven't been doing a very good job, and for that I'm sorry.
Why do you say that?
Because this country is more screwed up than it was before I even began, and I'm out here like a voice crying in the wilderness, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to create a better world for my children. I'm a father of 7 healthy Liberty children.
7.
I'm a farmer. I'm an activist, musician. I'm a Christian.
Yes.
And I'm a person who takes a principled stand on things. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay. I'm fighting for our right to disagree peacefully.
Right.
But
Amen.
I just see so many of my countrymen who are clamoring for their change. They want their slavery desperately, and they're ready to pounce on anyone who advocates for freedom. And it's so bizarre. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, right. Sometimes, but I haven't done, my mission in this world is not over. I can tell you that much.
Good for you.
And I know that's true when God keeps giving me these missions to complete, like the one that I'm doing right now for Shaeffer Cox, who's an American political prisoner who I've written a song for and just released. And I'm doing a national press campaign to talk about him.
That's great. Sorry, we actually have two sick kids upstairs, so they're still up. We're gonna try to run this and deal with them at the same time.
I know how it is, brother.
Now, do you want to tell us? Like I said earlier, we do have a little overview of the Shaeffer Cox story, but
I'll be right back.
if you'd like to tell us what you know about it and kind of tell the audience if they haven't heard of him before.
Sure, no problem. I heard Shaeffer Cox's name through the years, and never. I don't know why, man. I just never researched him. Mm-hmm. I just have so much going on in my life, and have been just inundated with other things. But his name was always there. Mm-hmm. It was always kind of lurking. And a lot of people that I love and respect had posted things about him, and I just never looked into it. And I regret that now. I wish that I had looked into this much sooner, but for a reason at the appointed time. Mm-hmm. So the way I would describe Cox is one of us. He's a Ron Paul libertarian political activist. He was a politician, young guy up in Alaska, running for office and teaching people about their rights, teaching them about the Constitution, about the history of our country, the founding fathers, the founding documents, and what it all really means. And while he was running for office, he uncovered a massive child sex and being perpetrated through CPS, the courts, the higher levels of government in Alaska. He started naming names publicly.
Oh yeah, that's dangerous.
talking about where they were conducting these activities with children, and he really brought the full power of the state down upon. That's the one thing you don't do is name names, and he was under surveillance for 2 years after he naming people. The federal government sent in 2 career criminal informants to successful at doing so. They tried for 2 years to get him to, they wanted to get him to commit some violent acts so that they could bring him down. And what they underestimated is a nonviolent Gandhi type person. He even said, if they ever come for me, I'm going to pull a Gandhi, not a Rambo.
Yeah.
And so being unable to incite him to violence, they decided to try to kill him. And there were 2 serious attempts made on his life. And that he obviously survived both of those. He tried to get his wife and children through the help of one of the informants who he thought was his friend working against him. Set him up for an ambush by a SWAT team, and he was arrested. And when they don't have anything to charge you with, they charge you with conspiracy. And so Shaeffer was charged with conspiracy to murder federal agents and solicitation to murder federal agents, as well as some various weapons charges that were also bogus. All, the weapons that he had in his possession, from what I understand, they were legal weapons to own, but they weren't his. They belonged to the informants who had asked him as a favor if they could store them at his home, in his garage. And so he said, sure, bring them on over, thinking that these people were his friends. And there was no conspiracy and there was no solicitation. Now, Shaeffer's case was an Alaska state case, and it was thrown out for lack of evidence. That is one of the most important parts of this case for you guys and for your listeners to understand. The case was thrown out for lack of evidence, and they had 2 years of recordings from the FBI to play at this hearing, and the judges threw it out because there was no evidence against this man. He is an innocent man. While he was still incarcerated, superseded its own jurisdiction, came in and tried him again illegally. Outside of their jurisdiction, they tried him again. They brought a federal judge out of retirement, an older judge who was almost deaf, because no federal sitting judges would listen to it because they could clearly see it was farce. Out of retirement, and and this judge refused to allow those tapes to be played. The prosecution in this case was known for prosecutorial misconduct and hiding exculpatory evidence, and they hid over 500 pages of evidence proving Shaeffer's innocence. Now, he was sentenced to 26 years by this judge for a crime that there was no crime. In fact, 2 August of 2017, his solicitation charge was dropped entirely. So it stands to reason, a thinking person, that if there is no solicitation, then you cannot have a conspiracy. A conspiracy requires a solicitation to take place. A person has to solicit someone else to conspire with them, and that solicitation charge. So Shaeffer is an amazing person. He's a brilliant writer. He's a brilliant speaker. He's a brilliant legal mind, a brilliant political mind. And they silence because he has such a power, and he was calling them out in the principalities of wickedness in high places for doing the horrible things that they were doing. These things are real. They are real, and this is an example of a man who had the entire weaponized against him, and they sent him. Not only did they move his trial to Washington to ensure that no witnesses testify, but after they found him guilty, they sent him to one of 2 secret black site prisons in the United States called communications CMUs. And the CMUs are known as Little Guantanamo because when they supposedly shut down Guantanamo Bay, that's where they sent all those prisoners, is to these 2 units. Oh. And they practiced the same torture methods there that they practiced on them in Guantanamo Bay. Nothing changed for these people. And they put what they call balancers in these units who are not radical ISIS members, radical Muslim terrorist type folks, in order to escape scrutiny for having only one demographic in the prison. So they put a handful of non-Muslims in the prison for appearances. And just so happens one of those prisoners is a famous prisoner. Torture is routine in these prisons. They are outside of congressional oversight. They did not go through the congressional. They are illegal prisons. They're prisons within a prison. And it's absolute hell on earth. And Shaeffer is one of very few Christians in this prison. All the Christians in this prison are marked for death. Yeah. In fact, one of his allies was murdered in front of him back in November. And I'm sorry to burden your souls with this, but the story needs to be told. Shaeffer leaked this information back in November and was put by the prison staff. Shaeffer and 5 other men were in a room praying together with a Bible and singing hymns. And they were ambushed by a large group of Muslim inmates who seized one of the men, tied his hands behind his back, stabbed him in the heart, and then cut his head off with a homemade garrote made out of a wire. And this all happened right in front of Shaeffer. They were unable to save this man because they were physically overwhelmed. The second man was stabbed 12 times. He miraculously survived. And the rest of them were able to survive because the SWAT team finally arrived after 15 minutes. Wow. The guards did nothing to intervene. They hid in a closet. They did nothing to help. And it's just the worst place in the world. And it's one of the top 10 worst prisons in the world right here on American soil. So Christians are being martyred for their faith in this prison. And the ray of hope that we have right now is that one of the several judges that oversees Shaeffer's case last month in February ordered that all that exculpatory evidence the prosecution withheld to be released. And he has a resentencing coming up that's already been rescheduled 3 times. Right now it's November. It was May, then June, then July. Now it's November. But this resentencing with this new information, with this old information that was kept from the jury, if it is released, in a timely fashion, then he could conceivably be served the rest of this horrific sentence that he's been given. So I've written a song for Shaeffer, a copy of his book of song lyrics and poetry that he wrote from a previous prison that he was in before he was transferred to the CMU. And these lyrics he had given up for lost because he was taken away and had to leave the papers behind. But somebody smuggled them out of that prison. We don't know who it was. It was a guard or a prisoner. They smuggled these lyrics out and gave them to Shaeffer's legal team, and they published them into a book. And that book ended up in my hands last June at an event I was performing at. And I run away by it. I reached out to someone, and she put me in Angels, which is a nonprofit organization that helps with Shaeffer's legal fund and his family and all that. And they love the idea. I wrote the song, with all of this information in my heart, and they loved it, and we got it produced, and we did a music video for it, and now we're doing a national press campaign to spread the name wide to raise public awareness and political pressure to get this innocent man out of prison.
Is my mic on?
That's the story.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. So you do something to it. Whew, that is so much.
That's heavy, man.
That is so much. I watched your video, and I don't know if it's the one that you linked to Dave for us to play after that.
Yeah, it is.
It is beautiful. I mean, it's like a sad beauty, because of the story behind it, but it's amazing. Oh, wow. Okay, so why am I just learning about this? I mean, I feel like I mean, I know I'm under a rock sometimes because I have my kids and they keep me busy, and we homeschool, and I'm just like focused. But I hate that these kind of things happen and we don't know about it. This really bothers me. That families are torn apart.
Every effort has been made. Oh yeah, every effort has been made to wipe history. They just put him in a dungeon and threw away the key so that you couldn't hear his story. But there are people who have been carrying the torch all these years. I mean, Shaeffer had a wife. He has 2 children, and those kids are growing up without a father. He can't even see them.
Yeah, that's sad.
I think one of the only visitors he's allowed to have is his mother, but he can't even touch her. He has to see her from behind glass.
Wow.
There was no crime. It was an innocent man surrounded by people that want to kill him 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And he has no human contact with anyone who loves him. And the people that are his allies are being murdered around him. Wow. So but he still remains so hopeful and strong in his faith. Many people have come to the CMU who were not Muslim, and that almost all of them have converted to Islam to avoid persecution and torture.
Oh, wow.
And he has held on all these years and refuses to do so. He says Jesus to the end, and that he'll never turn on God, and he'll never walk away from his faith. And he's just a really inspiring person. I am in touch with him now through heavily monitored emails. He did call me. He was able to do 2 15-minute phone calls a week, and he called me about over a month ago. And and I got to play the song for him. I played it with my guitar, just singing it over the phone.
Yes.
And he could hear my kids playing in the background, just like their little voices, And after the song was done, he said that he loved the song, and that hearing it with the sound of my children's voices in the background reminded him that there is a real world out there beyond the godless, cold walls of that prison.
Yeah.
And that he had lost like years ago. It was like something that had died in him. I mean, not having the ability to cry if you are mourning something.
Yeah.
And he said that had died in him, and that listening to that song just made him feel like he could cry again.
Wow.
So those are the moments that motivate me, and this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
It was I wrote a song for LaVoy Finicum 3 years ago, when the rancher that was killed from Arizona that was killed up in Oregon with the Bundy standoff. Yeah. And I wrote a song the night that he was murdered, and I put it up on YouTube the next night. And 3 days later, his daughter called me, telling me that the whole family was at their ranch watching this video that I had recorded on my couch in my living room, and that they were all crying and listening to it over and over and over, and that it was giving them hope that their dad's death wouldn't be in vain. I mean, that's why I do it. Why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I certainly haven't gotten rich doing this. It's about something greater and something deeper, and it's about doing what the Lord has called me to do, and I'm just an instrument for His voice. That's the way I see it.
That's amazing.
And I'm, yeah.
That's like goosebumps. I love that.
Yeah, I know you probably said it, but I must have missed it. How long has he been in this prison?
Actually, I think at that point he's been in for 8 years now.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous. Yeah.
26-year sentence. Yeah. And it's actually his weapons charges sentencing expires in September, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. So they're holding him illegally. There's no reason for them to continue to hold him, because the solicitation charge negates the conspiracy charge. And now that this evidence is in the process of being released, it should completely set him free. But of course, we're dealing with the criminal injustice system, so we don't know what kind of horrible tricks that they have. But we're great, God is greater than these forces on earth. And here's what we're asking for people to do. Number one is pray for Shaeffer, pray for his safety, and just give him that support. Number two is go to freeschaeffer.com, FREESCHAEFFER. Go to freeschaeffer.com. You can watch the music video there. You can buy the song from there. 50% of every download goes right to the foundation to pay for Shaeffer's legal expenses, which are considerable. I actually took several lines from Shaeffer's book and put them in the song to honor him and to incorporate his voice into the song. Mm-hmm. And so he's a co-author of the song, and so I'm directing 50% of all the sales right to the foundation. Now you can get it on iTunes, on Amazon, on Google Play, on CD Baby, anywhere you can download music. You can download this song. It's called "The Persecution of Shaeffer Cox," and you can read about Shaeffer's story at freeschaeffer.com and watch documentaries that have been made about him. It's a very comprehensive website. You can read his letters from prison and get on the email list and consider pledging a monthly pledge to his legal fund, because that's what we're really trying to do is to keep that fund rolling so that he can fight these battles. It's very expensive, and it literally could save his life. So
yeah, literally,
that's what we're trying to have people.
Wow. This is probably one of our heaviest episodes we've done. But it is very good to get this message out there. Mary's, like I said, Mary's usually the talker. Do you have anything else going on right now, other than, or is this pretty much taking up all your attention?
Well, I do a lot of stuff. I just got back from a tour in Florida. I'm planning some other tours. I'm going to be up in the Northeast quite a bit over the next few months doing shows. I'm planning a new album, hopefully this year. I'm putting the budget together for that. And, I'm heavily involved in the blockchain space, and I'm a partner in a blockchain development company, and systems that are going to change the world and hopefully reduce the amount of power and influence that centralized tyrannical governance systems have over our lives. And that's exciting. I'm raising my kids, and
yeah, I kind of feel you can do just.
I'm a farmer. I'm going to be planting crops here over the next couple of weeks, and just running a functioning farm.
Yeah.
And just living life. But Shaeffer is very much my focus right now. It's something that I can pour a lot of time and energy into, and it's very worthwhile. Shaeffer's got a new book coming out that comprises all his letters from prison. He's an exquisite writer, and it will really be something else to read this. I may be editing this book. I think they want me to be the editor for the book. I have like the gift of zeroing in on every grammatical error and everything that I read. So I inherited that from my mom. She's got that gene too. Mm-hmm. My wife calls me the grammar Nazi.
Yes.
And so I'm going to be hopefully editing Shaeffer's book. We're seeking a presidential pardon from President Trump. President Trump pardoned me last year, which was really surprising and amazing. And I know that he's got a heart for the political prisoners of the Obama-Clinton era. And so we're appealing to President Trump for sooner than his resentencing is coming up. And we're also here to make a feature film about Shaeffer's life, because his life is extraordinary, and it's quite a story. So that's what I've got going on. It's a lot. I'm always. There's never a dull moment in life with Jordan Page. I can tell you that much.
Outside of 7 kids and a farm, I don't see how you can do it.
Yeah, we have 3 kids, and when you said 7, I almost fell off my chair. God, how are you sitting there? How do you have?
How'd you get away?
Oh my goodness! Thank you for coming on. I mean, this is great. You do have so much going on, and your passion for Shaeffer. I can feel it. With every word you said, I could feel, I had goosebumps, and it's so sad that how is this not known? How do more people not know about this, but we are going to spread the message. And you said the website is it freeshaeffercox.com?
Yeah, spell it.
Yes. No, it's freeshaeffer.com. It's FREE.
Okay.
SCHAEFFER.com. Freeshaeffer.com.
We're gonna put that.
You can also go to jordanpagemusic.com.
Okay.
And you can buy the song through the website. And again, it's on iTunes. I have a Pandora station. It's on all the streaming sites. But it's on iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, CD Baby, you name it. Okay. And do you guys want to play the video so people can check it out?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I figured that'd be kind of our
I know you
goodbye.
have to run. I'm so grateful that you had time to come in and hang out with us for a little while before you have to go off and do other things. It's just, you have a busy life.
Yeah. Mrs. Page has us going to like an hors d'oeuvre cocktail party tonight, so nice. It's very rare that we get to go out on little dates. So we're gonna go do that. And be around other grown-ups.
Adult time.
Adult time. This is my adult time. Yes.
All right. Well, then we'll let you get to that and get to your date night, and we'll play your song as soon as we leave here.
Have a wonderful time.
Awesome.
And thank you again for coming on and sharing this story. We can't wait to share the song now. Yeah. Have a great night, Jordan. And hopefully we can have you come back on some other time. You got another song come out. You want to talk about anything ever, you're always welcome on Liberty Late Night.
I'd love to. Thank you guys so much for having me, and doing it again soon.
All right. Peace. Bye.